So here we are continuing with drawing 9, DT23. We're on object B. We already completed the outer dimension box that describes the pictorial that we're working on, and we're looking at this part of worksheet 7 for reference. I'm going to try and cut some of these face lines that are on here onto our outer box. And so I'll just start with this little notch down here. And I see it goes all the way across this edge here, and it starts one grid up. So I have if I put on my grid snap here, maybe I'll turn this snap off and try doing it with just the grid snap. Sometimes you have to pick your battles with the snap. And so it's one grid up and it's going back 2 grids, and then it's coming down here. So that was pretty easy. Now you can copy. Now I would like to take that off and put this back on. And use the end point to put this edge line in. Right? And of course this will be trimmed. And a few more trims are needed to get rid of the unneeded lines. And just leave us with the visible edges that we have. So I think that'll do that corner. And we can check back over here. So that was 2 in. Now let's do this notch, and we have to be a little careful here because it's a half a grid. So this line here, right here, is it's 0.375. Pay no attention to the dimension flashing there. That's from a different world over there. So we're gonna go up. We're gonna start a line, and then because I have on my polar tracking and my snapping, I can reference the starting point by just hovering over there. I started the line command, but I didn't click that line, right? I just hovered it over there. I got that green starting point, that reference point, and I'm just telling it to start a line 0.25 from that starting point, and it did right there. And I could have done the same thing with the grid snap. And then this way we're going to go 0.25. So I'm using relative coordinates. Now this distance is 0.375 because it's 1.5 grids, and each grid is 0.25. And then I'm coming back over here and choosing my relative coordinates. So now we can trim this edge. But we have a line right there. So maybe the same angle as this line. So let's put it over here and then just make sure that, oh, it happens to be the same length. How interesting. Well, it's because of the relationship to the nearby line. And then I'm going to do these 2 foreshortened slopes. So we've got 2 foreshortened slopes. The first foreshortened slope is right here. And then the second one is right there. So this one goes down 1 grid and over 2. The other one goes down 1 and over 2 also. So they both do the same thing. And it starts, and we just use a reference point. I come down here, I go 0.25. It's going to go down. Now I'm going to use my grid snap. So now it came down 1. So that was the vertical component of the foreshortened slope. Now I come over here 2. That allows me to close off this triangle that is the actual line that we're drawing. So we put in the y component and the x component separately using distances, real distances on the iso axis, and that allows us to draw this non-parallel slope. And then we can just get rid of those layout lines. And we can do the same thing on this one. We can just say, okay, we're going over 2, and I'm using a grid, and then up 1. And then I can draw a line connecting those 2 points. So we're still working on our little object here. We put a visible line across at these vertices, and now we're going to just carefully draw in that back edge using snaps. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but I'm going to use those as trimming edges and get rid of these top edges like that. So now we have, I think, pretty much completed all of the work for object B, and we're just going to go over to our frame layer and draw a rectangle using lower left and upper and making sure your grid's off and taking off your regular snaps and putting on your geometric snaps for this, and then using M for move, selecting everything, getting the small box grip and putting it right there on the large box geometric center. So that one's done. And we can just go right on back to our visible, and we'll work on C. So this one has a overall dimension of 6 on the face, so 6 grids is 1.5, and it's 0.75 tall, and it's 1 deep. So let's try and draw that much first. Right? Put that layer on. Just going to start my command, and now we've got to go back and get our snaps going a little better for this task. Right? So sometimes you change your snaps for every task sometimes. So we're going 1.5. This is the overall dimension, and then it's 0.75 tall. And I'm just looking at that front face to get that, and then I know that it's also, in this dimension, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's 1. And I can copy that around, and then I can copy this around, and I can copy, it's the depth, right? So that's the depth. So that's our little construction box. And we'll cut away the parts that are empty space in the model. So if we're looking at the front view of the object, we see that we have, I would say, a smaller extension coming out here, smaller building extension coming out there. And it has its own edge of 3 wide by 2 tall. So if I was lining up over on this corner, it would be 2 tall, so that would be 0.5. And then it would come down over here, and it would be 0.75. So, looks like that on the front face. Yeah. But that edge isn't really there, right? That's just sort of the front profile of it, front orthographic representation of it. And then there's also a line on the front that if I go from here 0.25, 1 grid over, 0.25, and then we can check. You can always check things in ISO. That should be 0.25, and this should be 0.25. And so that's going to copy this edge is going to be here and here. And still, we're still dealing with sort of overdrawn areas. Oh, undo. Trim. Let's try to trim this here. And I'm trying to get that front face to look something like the front face. And then on the top view, let's see what we got. We've got a rectangular area that's 5 by 2 up here in this corner. So I'm going to just come over here. That'll be 0.5. And again, I'm starting the line, referencing, pulling away, going 0.5 as the start point, and then coming down here, and we decided that was going to be 1.25. And then it closes off. And actually that's good because that coincides with my visible edge right here where I would expect it. And now I know that this oops, I made a mistake. Move this over to here. And you can copy it over here. So that is only in the back. We'll call that the back side. Put a little trim. Sometimes my trimming is inefficient. It's not wrong, it's inefficient. Sometimes you want to do better than slow. Alrighty, so now we have this whole foreshortened deal here that I'm sorry, this foreshortened deal here. So we've got that foreshortened slope in. Got this one to deal with. So that slope is it goes 1 back and 2 up, and it starts right there. So it goes from here, goes on there, 0.25, and then on this axis, 0.5. It comes back down over there. So that is actually what that edge looks like. So you can get rid of that. And then it goes to the top of that, right? And it goes 1 back. Goes line, goes from here, it goes back 0.25. And that would make on there, it would make again, we're just chopping away the outer box and leaving what we think is visible. A little extra clicking. And let's get rid of these. These don't, oh, actually, that one is good. This one. And then copy this. So again, that's one of those slopes. We can't draw that except using the X and Y components. And then we're going to copy this back. Now, you can see sometimes these constructed boxes can be confusing. This one, and then we're going to do these verticals. So that one, that line is wrong. But this line is what we need. We need this line to come down here, and it comes down 0.5, and it ends right there. And then this one goes away. We're going to stop right there, and we'll finish that one in the next video.